What is going on, everyone? Parsnip here, and today I'm going to go ahead and teach you guys two different ways to build a treehouse. Now, this was actually requested quite a few times, and since my treehouse speed build is one of my more popular builds, I decided to go ahead and do it. So, different from popular belief, treehouses are super simple and a lot faster to build if you compare it with some of the stuff I have on my channel. So for starters, you should decide on the materials that you want. Now this could be anything from your normal wood or rich mahogany all the way to something a bit more complex like using a living wood wand and actuators. Now once you decide on the blocks, and remember that you're going to want a couple of blocks, so make sure you choose 3 or 4 different types of blocks and consider that you're going to want wood and leaves. So after you decided on those blocks, we can go to step 2. Now this is where you start making the base of the trunk. So believe it or not, this part is incredibly important. The base will pretty much dictate the size of the entire tree. So a wider trunk in the bottom will naturally give you a taller and bigger tree. And of course, the bigger the tree is, the more rooms you'll have and space you can utilize. So make sure you consider what you want before you start building the tree. So if you're going for a huge main base in the tree house, make the tree big. If you want just like a room for the dryad, just feel free to make something a bit smaller. Now on the example I make here, I go ahead and use something a bit medium size-ish, I guess. Let's just call it a decent sized trunk and a couple of branches at the top. So I use the living wood wand and I also use some living wood walls just to give it a bit more depth. So the real challenge on the treehouse is not the branches or trunk itself, but the leaves. So here I go ahead and use quite a few materials, and on my next example it will be a lot simpler, but on this particular tree I go ahead and use quite some blocks. So here I use dirt and place grass seeds on the dirt, and mud and place jungle seeds on the mud. Now what you want to do here is just randomly mix them around, that way it will just look a lot more smoother at the end. I then go ahead and start placing walls. And the walls I use are jungle walls, grass walls, and flower walls, and all of these can be bought at the Dryad. So I do the same thing as I did with the dirt and the mud. I mix them around just so that the final result looks smoother. Next up, I go ahead and use some wooden fences. Now what this is for is to make it look like smaller branches are in the background. So just keep this to a moderate amount, like just a little bit here and a little bit there, and it will look great. This will just keep it one step above. Now, you could go ahead and place some lanterns, that way you could see at night, and when people visit, because the tree is so big and normally they can't get into most of the parts inside the tree, this will let them see what's actually there. So this is optional, so you guys can go ahead and put the lanterns or not. Lastly, I'm going to go ahead and start making the rooms. So on this tree house, I'll just make a few so you guys have an idea. Plus, I just like to keep it simple, it gives it that cleaner look. However, if you do want a bigger room or more rooms, just feel free to do whatever you guys like. Again, I'm just keeping it simple for the tutorial. Now, what I use is a living mahogany wand and some wood to just make random shapes, pretty much. Now, a great idea on the treehouse is to use some sort of rope or support. That way the room hangs from the tree, and that just gives it that awesome treehouse feel, like sort of wild look. So guys, even by telling you this, some people might still have more difficulties, so I'm gonna go ahead and take a step back and try to explain it again, but in a simpler and shorter manner. So go ahead and picture a tree and pick blocks based on the tree you're imagining. If you want something more tropical, just go ahead and get some palm woods and some lush green leaves. I mean, guys, you don't have to make it exactly how I'm doing it. Feel free to do whatever you want. Like if you want something a bit more spooky or dark, go ahead and get some shade wood and paint the leaves black or purple, for example. Now, continue to picture that same tree and start building the trunk. Make sure you consider what your trunk will do. Will it just support the leaves, or will it be your entryway, for example? If you want to enter the tree through the trunk, just leave the center of it hollow and fill it with walls. That way you'll be able to go in through the trunk and out pretty easily. So while making the trunk, try adding a couple of small branches near the middle and a bigger branches, a lot of branches actually at the top. And always make it bigger than the branches that you put in the middle. Now this will just give it a more realistic feel, I guess. So the next part is actually the only hard part to making a tree house, and that part is the leaves, like I said before. So if you're still imagining the tree, and if anyone has difficulties coming up with a tree in their mind, just go ahead and get a tree picture or open another tree in a monitor or on your cell phone and use that for reference. So make sure the total size of the leaf is big enough for everything you want, and try to keep it as simple as possible. No one really wants a tree where the right side is twice as big as the left. So next, just go ahead and fill the spaces around the branches. In fact, you could even make those a tad bit bigger. My bad guys, a tad bit bigger than the rest. And finally, make your rooms however you want it. If you want bigger rooms, make them bigger. If you want them smaller, make them smaller. If you want to use this material, go ahead and use that, guys. Just feel free to do whatever you think is right. Now let's go ahead to the second and final tree I'm going to show you guys. So as you can see, this tree is so much simpler than the first one, and it also looks pretty damn good. So on this example, I go ahead and use living mahogany for the trunk and leaves, and I make the base inside the leaves. So the area that's inside the leaf is going to be where you're going to put your furniture, your rooms, and whatnot. So again, depending on what you want to do, you base the initial trunk size. If it's bigger, the whole base is going to be bigger, and if it's smaller, it's not going to have a lot of room for much. So make sure you consider that before you start building. So I decide that I want to use my trunk as an entrance to the tree house, as I thought it would be pretty cool. So I go ahead and make the frame of the trunk and some branches right afterwards. I then decide on how big I want my area inside the leaf and start forming the main leaf area. And guys, feel free to mess around here. Nothing comes out perfect at your first attempt. I decide that I want to give the tree some flair, so I go ahead and just do something else, and that is adding another layer of branches right on top of the leaves and surround those branches with leaves, guys. And this is pretty much done. All you have to do now is just add some walls and go ahead and use this huge space inside the leaves for furniture. What I do is just add some platforms and add random furnitures inside with lights. And as you guys can see, tree houses are super simple to make and quite fast. So I hope you all enjoyed the video, and if you have any questions, make sure to leave them in the comment section below. And as always guys, thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you all next time.